Let the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Feels very different speaking from this side of the chapel. It's kind of daunting. I feel much higher than I usually do. It's also very humbling knowing the caliber of people that have spoken from here before, sharing their wisdom with the congregation, people who have forgotten more than I've learned and who have experienced more than I can fathom at my age. So for that, I'm grateful for Tim for giving me the opportunity to share some of my thoughts this evening, and I hope that in 20 or 30 years I can come back and hopefully have a bit more wisdom to share with the next generation of people that fill this chapel. When Tim first asked me to speak this evening, I knew right away that I wanted to begin with a quote, one that's been heard numerous times within these walls, and I hope by doing so I don't steal any of Tim's thunder when it comes to the notices. But if you're here for the first time or the 10,000th time, you are welcome. This is a community for all. As much as we hear it and kind of just absorb the message, it's very true. For my first time walking into this chapel to walking in this evening, it's been a spiritual home for me on campus, and a place that even if I'm just walking through on a busy day, I can stop and reflect quickly and kind of center myself. I guess a key part to those moments, either on a Sunday night or coming to a morning service, is often centered around the window behind me, whether it be during the day and radiating in color, or at night when it's glowing in black and gold. It has become a special place for me on campus to admire it and just reflect. A very prevalent memory I have within this chapel, and with that window, was last year at the anniversary of the chapel. After the dinner, we had a service here, and after we processed out, former chaplain Roger Prentice pulled me aside and asked me to look at the aisle at the window, and the memory is so etched into my mind that I can practically relive it every time I think of it. But the window was glowing more than I've ever seen it, and the chapel was packed with singing people, and I'm truly grateful to be able to experience the chapel in its full glory, and it's something I doubt I'll ever forget. Another thing I'm very grateful for, having experienced before I leave Acadia, is the work that John has done in reestablishing the chapel throughout my, or chapel choir, sorry. Throughout my earlier years, I kind of heard talks of their tours of England and what it once was, and it's great to have it back, and it really adds to the spiritual atmosphere of the chapel. And as someone who can't sing to save my life, I'm always in awe of those who can. So this year's theme has been spirituality in a digital age, and being a chapel assistant and having to come on Sundays, I've had the advantage of hearing others before me, their takes on the theme, what they thought of it, and kind of pulling from that, forming my own ideas and sort of building it as I go. And as much as I built my idea for this sermon throughout the last 2 semesters, I didn't get around to actually writing it down until much later than I had planned. There's one main difference with me sharing my opinions on the digital age than the people that have spoken before, is that I don't know a life without the internet and without the kind of digital advancements that have come with it. Most of the people that have spoken have sort of talked about how it changed their lives, or like different aspects of it that change how they communicate, but I really don't know anything different. And to those of you who went through university without the use of Google, I am in awe of that. I use it on a daily basis, whether knowingly or not, from school to general knowledge to work, and I don't really know what I would do without a tool like that in my life. We've become a culture that has become obsessed with our digital lives. If you ask someone my age when the last time their phone was more than 100 meters away from them, I doubt they will be able to remember. We've developed a need for connectivity to stay up to date on news, on gossip, on the lives of our friends and families, and we share information so that others can stay up to date with ours. 2 summers I spent tree planting, and it kind of gave me the opportunity to escape this technology and sort of experience life without the digital distractions we have and get to know people outside of what they share on social media and sort of just know them for how they present themselves in the moment. But even in tree planting, I found that in the end we come back to technology. On our off days, we'd head back into civilization, and once we crossed the imaginary line of cell service, everyone's phones would come out. We'd contact friends and families, updating them on our lives, hearing about their lives, and refilling our need for connectivity. So as much as it was great to escape technology, sort of found our way back, and it's definitely ingrained as a major part of our lives. In a digital age, the internet is often at the center, and this evening I kind of want to talk about 2 facets of the internet. But to start, an overview of my opinion of it, the internet is a weird and magical place. It allows us to stay connected to people globally, whether acquaintances or family, with the touch of a button. It allows us the access to vast amounts of knowledge. Any inquiry you have, you can search it, and more than likely you'll find the answer. Any skill you want more information on, you can search it as well, and there'll be tutorials and videos that'll help you with that. It has made us a more aware society. It has given knowledge of things that are happening overseas in third world countries that likely we would not hear about if it wasn't for the connectivity that this brings. The internet is also a place that has millions of pictures of cats and random jokes and just an abundance of ridiculous things in any category you could think of. The internet, if we break it down into 2 segments, the first I'd like to talk about is the digital representation we create of ourselves. This through social media, your Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever have you, sharing our opinions online and anything that we put under our own name. We create a sort of personal brand, what we represent and who we are, and obviously when doing this we try to create the best image of ourselves. We share our successes and we hide our faults. We share our experiences so that others know we had them. You often see people at concerts filming the concert for the sake of sharing it on Facebook rather than experiencing it personally for themselves. It has become common practice and one that I'm guilty of myself, but it has created a sort of narcissistic society that feeds off likes and comments, shares, retweets, and favorites. And as a result, our digital lives have been centered around these points and acknowledgement of our experiences and our successes. Therefore, if we do something good solely for the sake of these points and creating a good image of ourselves, is it truly a good deed? In Matthew 6:19 and 20, reads, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and rust consume and where thieves break in and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal." So if we do good only for recognition, are we then not sacrificing the reward we receive for it in heaven? Last week, Tim discussed the concept of Jesus having a Facebook page. And I believe that if he did, he would not share statuses such as, "I gave a blind man sight," or "I made a lame man walk," or "I miraculously fed masses," because this is not the way that he had taught us. This brings me to the other section of the internet, one where one that is full of anonymous actions. There's no real connection between the actions we take and ourselves. And yes, it's a world full of cats, jokes, information, and numerous other sources of data. Users have no real obligation to do anything or be anyone. Their actions do not affect our digital representation of ourselves that we work so hard to create. In this part of the internet, we can simply browse without doing anything good or bad for another human being. There are no repercussions for doing nothing, and there are likely no reward for taking action. Yet, on a regular basis, strangers help strangers. Strangers who they have never met nor likely ever will, not for the purpose of receiving credit, but simply because it is the right thing to do. On October 25th last year, World War II veteran Roscoe Cassidy died at the age of 107. His biggest fear, having outlived most of his friends and family, was that no one would attend his funeral. Users on the site Reddit heard of this, and waves of people who had never met the man showed up to pay their respects. Also last year, a story was posted about a 5-year-old boy who was terminally ill. His birthday was coming up, and he loved receiving mail. Thousands upon thousands of letters arrived for his birthday. Lost pets have been found, long-lost family members have been reunited, and the less fortunate helped on countless occasions. The defining part of these stories and numerous others that I have not mentioned is that it's complete strangers performing these deeds. They had no obligation and received no credit. They perform kindness simply because it is the right thing to do. When Jesus said, "Love one another as I have loved you," I believe this is the type of love he meant. Not loving one another for the sake of sharing it on Facebook and receiving likes for your actions, but simply because we know it's the right thing to do in our hearts and it doesn't need recognition. I'm a product of the internet and the technological advancements in a digital age. An age of cat pictures and vast amounts of knowledge, the ability to connect globally and maintain relations, both near and far. An age that has brought new sections of crime and security issues that affect us on a daily basis, but also an age that has allowed us to love one another on a global scale, not for recognition or reward, but because it is how Jesus taught us to love.